And the real shift for me is that we need to stop thinking about the office as a cost center, and we need to start thinking about the office like a strategic asset that strengthens your profitability in P&L, but also strengthens your brand.
If I ask you to think about a sustainable workplace, your mind is probably going to go to energy savings and solar power and recycling, and all of those things are great. My guests today are suggesting that environmental sustainability really needs to be tied more to employee well-being and the bottom line of an organization. There's really an intersection between these three things. And when that happens, employees are happier, companies make more money, and we reduce our impact on climate change. Welcome to Work Better, the Steelcase podcast where we think about work and ways to make it better. I'm your host, Chris Congdon, and my guests today are Joaquina Garrido and Susana Quintas. They're both from Spain. Joaquina is a professor and former workplace lead for Accenture with offices in Iberia and the Middle East. And Susana serves as an author and a consultant, and she's focused really on corporate governance, sustainability, finance, and real estate. And together, they co-authored the Sustainable Office Playbook, a comprehensive guide for leveraging the office as a strategic asset while driving profitable sustainability. Here's what they had to say. Welcome to Work Better, Joaquina and Susana.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be here.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm so happy to talk to you because everybody's talking about the workplace today. It wasn't always that way. And I think there's a lot of interest in, what's the best way for organizations to really be thinking about their workplace going forward. And your book, the Sustainable Office Playbook, really looks at how workplace culture intersects with sustainability. I think that's a really interesting take on that subject. So I'm just curious, could you each tell me a little bit about what made you interested in thinking about the sustainable office in the first place? Like, Susana, let's start with you.
Well, for me, it was a question I spent more than 20 years working in real estate and finance and digital transformation. And from a strategic point of view, I was convinced that, you need to have purpose in your work so that we could earn a lot of money by doing the things in the right way. So a combination of all these and many unanswered questions was the starting point for me.
Oh, that's great. Joaquina, what about you?
I have worked extensively in workplace strategy and in real estate transformation when I was managing director at Accenture. I led a large-scale international workplace projects and always integrating sustainability, innovation, financial efficiency, etc., to create future-ready office environments. So, in my view, was something that I had to explain and put in a book.
You both clearly have a great base of knowledge that I think we can all benefit from hearing some of your thoughts. So I'd like to ask you to talk about, what do you think about the state of the workplace today, and what actually inspired you to write the Sustainable Office Playbook?
If you don't mind, Chris, I would like to start talking about the second part of your question.
Mm-hmm.
In my view, the Sustainable Office Playbook started with another book that Susana and I co-wrote 2 years ago, How to Innovate from the Boards. And in my chapter, I was focused on corporate culture and the future of work. Mm-hmm. And we highlighted a key idea. You can have the best strategy, the most ambitious goals, the most talented people, but if your corporate culture is not correct, the company will not succeed. So this belief shaped the playbook. Now, Susana and I worked together before when she was leading the Spanish operations of a UK prop tech company, and I was managing director at Accenture. But we reconnected at IFMA, Spain, and realized that we still had unanswered questions, as Susana mentioned, about the future of the workplace. So that's why one day having a coffee, we said, why not explore them together?
Let's go back and talk about that first question, which was, what do you think about the state of the workplace today?
Yeah, well, the timing for the playbook couldn't be better because we are living through the most important or the biggest transformation in history, at least of the last 100 years, right? We're redefining how we work, where we work, and even why we work.
Right.
So, people tend to think that this was a pandemic thing. For me, it's not. For me, it's, we had been living for many years in a digital economy, but with this industrial mindset. So what happened with the pandemic is that it changed all our perceptions, and suddenly work was not what you did at the office, was what you did, and you had to go remote. But instead of having a smooth transition, what we got is like a pendulum swing, no? First, like everybody knows, 100% remote. Now we try to bring people back to the office. And I think now we are more or less in the middle. I think hybrid is winning. And I don't know if it's 3 days at home to the office or the other way around, but probably in the middle lies virtue, like always. And probably this strikes a better balance both for corporates and for people. And if you take the latest available data in the US, for example, from March, office occupancy is between 48% to 60%, so still 40% empty. And if you go to the UK, this is lower. This is 37%. So, going forward, I think does this mean that the office is no longer important? No, it's more important than ever. Why? Because it's a place where you connect, where you build your brand, where, coworkers build their social capital. For me, it's the new social club. And I think this idea connects very well with an episode that you had in December, where you were talking about the social infrastructure in the office. No, so I guess that the conversation that companies need to be having now is no bring anywhere the people, just make the office something worth coming to. That's the conversation that we need to have.
Well, and that idea of social infrastructure is really about creating workplaces that help foster the kinds of behaviors that we want, that, help people to come together and to connect more. And that's a way of, like being able to build trust and a sense of belonging in an organization. So when you think about a sustainable office, I think you think about it, or you articulate it in maybe a slightly different way than what a lot of organizations might. So can you tell me, how do you define a sustainable office?
Yeah, Chris, sure. First of all, I need to make a clear statement, is that a sustainable office is not a green office, because people get confused. And if you try to look it up in the internet, it always comes a green office. For me, it's much more than that. And that's what's at the core of the playbook. It's a digital office that is connected through technology, and it connects three critical elements: environment, of course, people, and the bottom line of the company. That's important. I come from banking, so money is important for me. And I think it's important for sustainability too.
I think it's important to all of us.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm a believer in, profitable sustainability, and that's the concept that's behind our definition. So it's also, like I said, a digital environment, very data-driven, that fuels business growth. And that's the idea that connects previously. It's a social learning and innovation hub. And the real shift for me is that we need to stop thinking about the office as a cost center, and we need to start thinking about the office like a strategic asset that strengthens your profitability in P&L, but also strengthens your brand.
Yes. Joaquina, what do you have to add to that conversation?
Yes, I think I would like to highlight that younger generations are seeking to work for organizations with a clear purpose that aligns with their values, right? So this part of people-centric is very important. Therefore, a company committed to sustainability in the workplace for sure will be more attractive and have a greater ability to attract talent. There are a lot of recent studies showing that sustainable offices significantly impact employee retention and satisfaction. A few days ago, I read a Deloitte study that found that 94% of employees believe that organizational culture is essential for the engagement and retention. Additionally, I read that companies with strong sustainability practices experience up to 25% less employee turnover. So wow. that part of the sustainable office, people-centric, is really important.
I think this is really interesting what you're sharing, Joaquina, that because a lot of times we talk about these things, our values around sustainability and the well-being of people. But you actually have a lot of data that you've quantified this. Are there other things that you would highlight?
Basically, I think one thing is clear is that a sustainable office is simply worth more. And we're talking about a range of 10 to 15% to comparable buildings in prime locations. And this is related to several facts. One of them is that they get leased faster, at least 2 months. They have 10% higher occupancy rate. And if you look at the asset with a full cycle view, they require 40% less CapEx.
Mm-hmm. A sustainable office generates also savings in consumption and therefore in cost. For example, on electricity bills, you can save easily 15%, or water bills easily 30%. And at the same time, a sustainable office can also increase employee productivity.
Right.
And I can give you 3 data very quickly. First, lowering noise levels by just 10 decibels can enhance productivity by 5%.
Wow.
Second, better workplace acoustics can increase employee performance by 2%, equivalent to $1,600 per person annually. And third, improving air quality could boost productivity by 8%, equivalent to $6,500 per employee annually. So we can build a strong business case to be able to invest in a sustainable office.
And to complement what Joaquina was saying, I had an example from when I was working at the PropTech, and it's not only about health, but it's also about the quality in your decisions. I had a client which was a really, really big bank, and in their trading floor, they always kept the CO2 levels similar to what you find in the Amazon rainforest, because this allows you to be at your best in cognitive performance. And when you're trading lots of millions, that actually means money in the P&L. That was quite surprising.
That's so interesting, because I did want to understand that better, like how indoor air quality would make a difference in terms of people's productivity and cognition. It sounds like that. And that's why, because people are better able to process information with that kind of air quality. Is that right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Do you know when you go to a meeting and after 1 hour, you start having a headache?
Yes.
And, the quality of the decisions, when it's not greatly ventilated, it deteriorates significantly, even up to 60%. And there are studies done by the Harvard Health Institute that say that if you apply this at universities and you have good indoor air quality in real time, you get an extra 2% bonuses when you do an exam.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that really is maybe a connection that everybody hasn't made yet, that thinking about the sustainable workplace actually helps their physical and mental and emotional well-being, it sounds like. At Steelcase, we're part of a growing number of companies that have made a commitment to net zero carbon emissions. And there's a lot of other organizations, we're certainly not the only ones, that are trying to reach those goals. And I'm wondering, with all of your work and all of the very clear advantages for people in the planet that you've talked about, is there advice that you would offer about how organizations can reduce emissions in the workplace if they're on this journey as well?
Yes, totally. In Europe, it's particularly relevant because 40% of Europe's energy consumption and 36% of the emissions come from buildings. So, and also 75% of the buildings are highly inefficient. So, retrofitting is a must. But we must state something with caution. When we talk about energy optimization, we need to put people first. And I explain myself. In the 70s, we also became very obsessed with being energy efficient. And we actually generated all these spaces with poor ventilation and sealed off, and it ended making people sick. So this time we need to learn from our mistakes and try to balance efficiency and people's well-being. Having said that, for me, the first thing is use clean energy whenever possible, because this doesn't generate any emissions. But because you cannot always do that, the second strategy would be, how do I decrease my energy consumption? And at the office, 40% of the consumption comes from climatization and 30% comes from lighting. So what you need to do here, is to try to use my favorite tech, which is IoT, and operate the building in a very dynamic manner. So if you get IoT, predictive analytics, and AGen, what you actually do is connect the building to occupants. So you don't climatize when there's no people there. And this is a way to really, really make a lot of reduction. I had a client also in a university, and they had a library for master students, another library for different students. So they sensorized it, and in 2 months they discovered that during the weekends almost nobody went from the master to the library. So with the real data and being data driven and in real time, what they decided is to let's have just one library in the weekends, and they saved 10% of their energy. So I think it's very important when you combine these two things. And also, because you're responsible not only for what's going on in your building, but also workplace as a whole has to do with digital. And there are a lot of good things about digital, but there's one bad thing, is that they're highly intensive use of energy.
Right.
So you need to choose carefully your data center and try to be, powered by clean energy.
Wow. Susana, you said so much there that's so important. I think just a reminder to everybody how the buildings, the built environment can be or is a major source of carbon emissions. We all tend to think about automotive, and we oftentimes forget how much energy is used in constructing buildings and in maintaining buildings. And I think your point, of course, as AI becomes just such a normal part of business, there's definitely hope on the horizon there that they're going to be able to consume less power going forward. But you're right. I mean, it's just such a huge issue to think about. I'd like to talk a little bit more about technology. We were just talking about AI, for example. And how do you think going forward technology is going to help us or potentially hinder our ability to be able to be more sustainable?
Well, technology is changing entire industries, it's changing society, so it's also changing workplace and real estate. To me, Internet of Things, in a few years, we won't be able to imagine a world without IoT the same way that your kids ask you, how could you live without smartphones? So going forward, I think that applied to real estate, this is a very similar thing. Two very important things. We need real time. And this is provided by IoT, and also data quality, because, although it sounds very glamorous, artificial intelligence projects spend 80% of their time cleaning data. So as long as you get the data, you can do lots of things, but not without data. So clearly for me, that's the future going forward.
Chris, in 1 minute, let me give you some real examples that show the benefits of applying technology in workplaces. At Accenture's building in Madrid, we implemented air quality and occupancy sensors combined with AI to manage energy use more efficiently. For example, by using data from temperature, CO2, and occupancy sensors, we were able to reduce heating time by 2 hours, maintaining comfort while saving energy. In the summer, we introduced color outside air in the early morning, and that allowed us to delay turning on the air conditioning by an hour. These small adjustments helped reduce energy use without compromising health and comfort. Another example was the installation of sensors in trash bins to better manage recycling. These weight sensors send data directly to the tool that we use for sustainability reporting. And additionally, there were volume sensors and time sensors, of course, for organic waste recycling that sent SMS alerts to cleaning staff when the bins needed to be empty. This helped us to save in cleaning staff hours, saving in trash bags, reduce time spent by facility management staff, and of course improved accuracy in reporting. I can give you other examples, such as sensors that measure the occupancy of the network cafe, which through the content manager display real-time occupancy data to employees, so they can decide when to have a relaxed coffee, an informal meeting, or a lunch. And thanks to historical occupancy data, employees are also provided with estimated occupancy for the upcoming hours and days.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Before we wrap up today, I would like to ask you if you could offer some advice to our listeners. We're at all different places on our journey. Some might be well down the road, and others might be just kind of starting to think about creating a more sustainable office. From all of the work that you've done, what are some of the challenges that organizations are facing? And then maybe what are some of the opportunities as well?
So perhaps I can start giving my advice to others looking to design a sustainable office. Maybe is to summarize our conversation today. And I will give you my 5 points. The first thing is balancing financial objectives with environmental, social, and governance goals. Very important to prepare a good business case, including all the necessary aspects that will give us the right numbers. As we have said, might seem costly upfront, but green certified offices often lead to reduced operating expenses, enhanced productivity, etc. So it's important to take everything in the business case. The second is when designing a sustainable office is crucial to make data-driven decisions. So implementing occupancy sensors and energy management systems can optimize space utilization and efficiency. Mm-hmm. The third point, I would say that it's essential to prioritize people-centric design. Elements like air quality, lighting, acoustics, etc., significantly boost employee well-being. Mm-hmm. Fourth, technology. Smart technology is a game changer, as Susana explained this very well. AI systems, IoT, digital twins, they let us manage buildings in real estate. And finally, engaging employees is crucial. Yeah. Without their buy-in, sustainability initiatives are less likely to succeed. But equally important is involving the employees who will be working in these offices in the design project, ensuring that the workplace prioritizes their well-being. I believe that following these 5 points, the office we design will be a true success.
Thank you for summarizing that. I was going to ask Susana what you might have to add to that.
Well, basically what I would add is that one of the main challenges, as you can imagine, is budget. Yes. Today, every expense is being looked up under a microscope. So for me, in order to win the battle in the procurement committee, I think you should at least ask yourself 4 questions. And if you get just one yes, then I think you can go ahead. No, one of them is you need to ask yourself if this is going to reduce cost, mm-hmm. or how much is the return on investment. We need to put numbers on sustainability. That's the first. The second is maybe it doesn't reduce the cost, but it can allow you to open a new business line. For example, imagine that I'm an owner. I can generate a service to provide you with data and charge for it. Or I can protect my revenue, because if I don't do this, my assets will have less value, right? So the third question is, does it enhance your brand reputation? Does it make your people commit more to you, so you increase retention? And the fourth one is, make sure that you comply with regulation, because if you don't comply, you will suffer penalties. And this is obvious, but sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
And then connecting with the idea of the employees, I think we need to upskill them, because it's not the same to run a place in a traditional way that, learning how to do it with IoT or artificial intelligence. I guess that this upskilling is for all of us, but also for people who are in the workplace. But, if you do that, you get the prize, and it's worth it, because you get better reputation, stronger employee retention, higher asset value and return on investment. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point for us to end on today, that you've both made about the importance of people, of including people in the process, and helping them to see and understand how this will work different, but how that will end up benefiting them and the entire organization as well. So Joaquina and Susana, thank you so much for joining us today on Work Better.
Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
At Steelcase, our commitment to a net zero future includes Circular by Steelcase, a program created to help your organization reach its sustainability goals by offering a range of end-of-use services, including the best ways to reuse, repair, remake, and recycle your furniture. Learn more at steelcase.com.
Joaquina and Susana really helped me understand how the workplace can and really should be using technology to promote employee well-being and drive profitability, ultimately, and reduce the office's impact on the environment. And if you liked this episode, take a listen to my conversation with Eric Kleinenberg. That's season 5, episode 8. He talks about community and how community is tied to people's resilience, and why the best offices are really built like our favorite neighborhoods and our communities. And you're not going to want to miss next week's conversation when I talk with Nir Eyal about how to become, as he says, indistractable. If pings, dings, and rings are getting in the way of your to-do list, join us for that conversation next week. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and visit us at steelcase.com/research to sign up for weekly updates on workplace research, insights, and design ideas delivered right to your inbox. Thanks again for being here, and we hope your day at work tomorrow is just a little bit better. Thanks to everyone who helps make Work Better podcast possible, including our producers Katie Pace, Rebecca Charbauski, Stav Kontis, Chiara Licari, Brandon Lacic, and Celeste Johnson. Creative art direction is by Erin, Ellison, and Emily Cowdrey. Our editing and sound mixing is by Soundpost Studios. Technical support is by Mark Caswell and Jose Jimenez, and our digital publishing is by Areli, Arellano, and Jordan Marks.